What kind of tax issues are you much better off hiring a tax attorney for? Well, the one thing an attorney can bring you is the protections of being able to speak to you in a legal manner that will not create a witness in the person you're talking to. If you take the wrong issues to any other type of tax advisor, be it a CPA and a gold agent, whatever you say to them can be compelled. Even though they may have professional duties of confidence, the moment the government comes at you from a criminal perspective, anything you say to that person, they could be put on the witness stand whether they want to testify or not. They can face jail time if they don't cooperate. They can face daily fines until they do cooperate. The second thing, and the most important thing, is most preparers will bury you in a heartbeat to protect their own reputation. So if a question arises, the government knows it's got a fraudulent return in front of them. The real question in their mind is, did the preparer aid and abet income tax evasion? Are they part of the problem, or are they part of the solution? If there's any chance whatsoever your preparer can throw you under the bus to protect themselves, you really don't want to be using that preparer to represent you in an audit or criminal tax investigation. Well, if you hire me, you get someone who's an attorney, a CPA, and has a master's in tax all at the same time. And I bring a dream team to work for you. Everybody that works for me is working for a law firm. They have the same protections that you would have under a compelled arrangement. They can't be forced to testify against you either. So, when criminal tax exposure is on the table and you find yourself under audit, or there's any type of an investigation into your tax filings, if you have any concern whatsoever that your behavior that made the returns under state income was willful, you should not let your preparer, your bookkeeper, your CFO, anybody that works for you, your wife, your brother, your uncle, speak on your behalf. All of these people that are non-attorneys are generally not privileged. They could be forced to testify. Their very work papers they use to prepare returns can become exhibits, which is a problem if they look at the information you provided to the preparer and then they check it back against your records and they find out your books were cooked before it ever went to your CPA. If that's your situation, call the tax law office of David W. Klasing. Call us if you see any of the following fact patterns. If you're ever contacted by anybody from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, you need a tax attorney. Let me tell you how this plays out. CI loves to catch you unprepared. They'll usually approach you in pairs of two. One person's asking questions, the other's writing down all the answers. A lot of times they'll have 3 to 6 years of tax returns in their hand, and they've already been investigating you for 2 years before they ever approach you, or longer. They already know the answer to every question they're going to ask. Frankly, they don't need to talk to you to prosecute you. What they're hoping you'll do is try and talk your way out of it and lie. They are not there to help you fix it. A lot of times they'll come off with, "I'm sure we just have a misunderstanding here. Talk to me a little bit, and maybe I can make this go away." Don't buy it. You have nothing to say at that point. You identify yourself. Anything that has to do with your tax filings, you say, "Hey, I'm happy to talk to you, but not until my tax attorney is present. Call me. I'll be there." The next thing to look out for is what's called an eggshell audit. All right? If you know for a fact that you've cheated on your taxes and you find yourself under audit, and you're fearful that if you answer the auditor's questions honestly and that you'd incriminate yourself, you need to be talking to me, not the original preparer. You might even be dealing with a reverse eggshell audit, where the Criminal Investigation Division of the IRS, instead of approaching you as I earlier described, has a civil auditor start the process so that you don't lawyer up. All right, you can never know whether CI is in the background pulling the strings of a civil audit. If you have offshore potential tax evasion exposure or foreign information reporting fraud exposure, you want to be talking to me, nobody else. If you have unfiled FBARs, foreign bank account reporting, if you have offshore holding structures that haven't been reported, if you have cross-border merchant accounts that haven't been reported, if you have digital asset issues like unreported cryptocurrency disposals, unreported staking mining income, these are all issues you want to be talking to a tax attorney, nobody else. If you have employment-related tax pyramiding, in other words, you keep issuing your employees net checks, you never remit the payroll taxes to the federal or state governments, they're going to treat you like you reached into the national coffers and stole from them. I mean, that's a potentially criminal issue. Shouldn't be talking to anybody else than a criminal tax defense attorney, which is really what I am. If they're proposing to hit you with the trust fund recovery penalty, you're facing a TERP interview, you want to be talking to me. That's both civil and criminal exposure simultaneously. Don't trust it to anybody who's not trained or experienced for it. Well, the cold hard fact of the matter is about 75% of the cases we take on are purely civil. There's no criminal undertones to it, but people still hire us when they want a bazooka instead of a slingshot. Even when it's just getting through the audit and controlling the number of years that come under audit, or making sure that if you do give up ground in an audit, it's fair that you wind up paying the right amount of tax, penalties, and interest, that you aren't taking advantage in the audit process. What better way to go into it with the very guy that if you don't get the results you're looking for in the audit, will file a tax court petition and then bail you out in tax court? To tell you the truth, I've litigated hundreds of times in the last 15 years. I've never stepped foot in tax court. Why? Because if the law and the facts are on your side, the IRS appeals office has a 95% settlement rate, at least in our case. They settle. We don't actually have to litigate. But you're not stuck with an auditor that got the law wrong, the facts wrong, and the manager that backed them up. When we're involved with an audit, we like to replicate the work product of the average auditor. We go looking for compliance issues. We reconcile your books back to bank activity. We make sure your information returns make sense. We handle any documentation gaps. We control IDRs. And we, most importantly, control IRS interviews. First of all, we don't want them talking to you if we can help it. If they insist, if they subpoena you, we make sure you're well represented and well prepared to make sure we avoid any misstatements that could imply criminality. This firm has never lost in litigation. Why is that? I don't take on a case where the law and the facts aren't on my client's side, and I believe I could prevail. Most of the time I tell a client, you're going to lose, and it's going to cost you money to find out you're going to lose. I'm doing them a service when I do that. I do not take on tax litigation to make a buck unless I can win. Yeah, that's how I make my living, but I'm much more about getting justice for my clients. If that's your situation, call the tax law office of David W. Klasing.